Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us into very familiar territory. We're going to talk about another brown bear attack at Skilak Lake on the Kenai Peninsula in southern Alaska. At the juncture of Hidden Creek and Skilak Lake, there is a gravel campground that can be accessed by hiking trail, boat, or plane, and allows visitors to rest on the banks of Hidden Creek. The area around the creek and the trail that follows it is a broad valley covered in dense alder brush and spruce stands. The cover here is low-growing, which creates an impenetrable visual screen that shelters bears and allows them to stalk prey. The creeks that feed into Skilak Lake provide the salmon access to breeding and rearing grounds. Their bodies provide important nutrients for bears and many other animals. They are so essential to bears that they've been known to defend their fishing grounds to the death from other bears and possibly humans. On Friday, June 11th, 2021, a couple we will refer to as Jennifer and Jake had planned a romantic camping trip together. Jake and Jennifer drove to the parking lot at the Upper Skilak Lake campground and packed their supplies into their kayaks. They brought with them a very thorough first aid kit, bear spray, and an air horn. The campers packed their gear into the storage hatch of their kayaks, stuffed to the brim with sleeping bags, tents, and other necessities. When ready to launch their kayaks, they boarded their crafts and paddled into the cold waters. As they floated along the shore of Skilak Lake, the beautiful scenery mesmerized them. The 6-mile journey to Hidden Creek took a few hours in the afternoon, and upon arrival they were eager to get ashore to set up camp. After arriving at Hidden Creek, the couple beached their kayaks and began offloading their gear. They packed it a short distance to the established campground and began laying out their tent. The campers had plenty of time to finish setting up their camp just before starting dinner to enjoy the solitude and peace of the lake. As the shadows grew long, Jake and Jennifer decided to call it a night. They crawled into their sleeping bags, and the silence granted quick slumber to them. As they slept, a huge brown bear had been searching the creek bank for anything to eat. Finding regular sources of food is extremely important to bears, and this one was in a very aggressive mood as it needed the food there. Right around midnight, Jake was shaken awake by Jennifer. She woke him because she'd heard something moving very near the outside of their tent. As Jake came to his senses, he groped around their tent searching for the bear spray they'd brought with them. They decided they should look outside the tent door and see what it was that was creeping around them. Just as they peered out of a crack in their tent flap, they could see a huge round bear head coming into their view, and it was growing quickly. They realized the bear was charging toward them, and they had nowhere to go. As they retreated from the open tent flap, they could feel the overwhelming power of the bear slam into them and press them into the cool ground beneath the tent fabric. The tent material acted as a trap to them and held them in place for the bear as it took turns attacking Jake, and then Jennifer, and Jake once again. Given it was dark and the campers were covered in tent fabric, the bear had no idea what part of its victims it was clawing or biting. But it didn't matter, as whatever it could get into its mouth was bitten, and whatever it could strike with its claws was tattered. The darkness of the night and the added obstruction of the tent complicated any retreat the campers would try to make. The brown bear was attacking them for only a matter of a few seconds, but it seemed like much longer. By the time the bear had left their tent, Jake had severe puncture wounds on his legs and arms. Some of his wounds went so deep into his muscle tissue that his legs were not completely functional. Jennifer was somehow less battered, but had several gashes and punctures in her legs and arms as well. Even though the tent completely obscured the campers' vision, it protected them by limiting the bear's attack. As the campers were still terrified within their collapsed tent, they knew they would have to leave it to get help and risk running into the bear once again. For all they knew, the massive Bruin may have laid down nearby for a rest and could be watching them right now. Determining that they had no other choice, they grabbed a few supplies and began making their way back to their kayaks beached on the shore. They nervously groped their way along the trail while scanning the area with their headlamps, searching for the bear. Their heads would jerk back and forth as any noise in the brush brought their immediate attention. At the kayaks, Jake began searching through the contents of the first aid kit they'd brought on their trip. He was looking for one item in particular and found a couple of packets near the bottom. The product is called Quick Clot, and it is a compound that uses the chemistry of the blood to stop bleeding in wounds. It is frequently used in military trauma kits and has been one of the first treatments in the field by medics for the last few decades. Quick Clot works by a substance called kaolin, which quickly absorbs liquid factors in the blood. This leaves a higher concentration of platelets and other mechanical clotting factors, which will stop the bleeding, instead of them being washed away by the excess liquid. In the laboratory, test pigs were given a lethal wound, and Quick Clot was applied to them. The pigs had a 100% survival rate when this product was properly administered. Jake pulled out the kaolin-soaked Quick Clot bandages and applied them to Jennifer's most serious wounds, and she applied them to his. While keeping a wary eye out for the bear, Jake and Jennifer boarded their kayaks and painfully pushed away from the shore at only a few minutes after midnight. Skilak Lake is surrounded by mountains, and during the night Chinook winds can make the water choppy and rough. But this night the campers had an unusually calm return trip. The stars reflected on the calm lake surface, portraying a more peaceful scene than what they had just experienced. It took them a few hours to make the trip during the daytime, without any injuries. By 2 a.m. they had covered the 6 miles and returned to Upper Skilak Lake campground. As soon as they paddled up, they began yelling for help. Their cries were met with several campers emerging from their tents. As the responders gathered around the kayakers, they helped them out of their kayaks. Jake's injuries to his legs were so severe that he could not stand up and had to be assisted from his kayak. Jamie Nelson was raised in Kenai and was awakened by the campers' screams. He was camped with his family and was among those who responded to Jake and Jennifer's cries. The responding campers used cell phones packed with them to reach out to medical professionals. An ambulance was dispatched to the campground while the campers tried to keep Jake warm and from slipping into shock. Within 30 minutes the ambulance had arrived, followed in only a few more minutes by the medevac helicopter. Jake was loaded aboard and flown to the nearest hospital, while Jennifer made the trip in the ambulance, with less life-threatening injuries. The next day one of Jake's friends returned with biologists to assist in the investigation of the attack on Jake and Jennifer. He expressed gratitude to Nelson and relayed the information that they were now in stable condition. Nelson stated that seeing so many people respond to the kayakers' late-night appearance at their campsite was life-affirming. He remarked that when Alaskans see someone in trouble, they will come running to help. During the investigation, Alaska Department of Fish and Game and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service agents converged on the attack site. While there, they collected DNA evidence from the tent left by the bear, as well as rounded up all of Jake and Jennifer's belongings. They reported that there were no bears anywhere near the attack site, and sign that was left there was inconclusive. After analyzing all the evidence, they concluded that the attack was unprovoked. They also commented that Jake and Jennifer may not have survived had they not been well prepared. Their comprehensive first aid kit, bear spray, and bear horn demonstrated a well-planned trip that accounted for the potential of a bear attack. ADFG officials closed Hidden Creek Trail to allow investigators to complete their investigation, and it was reopened the following Sunday. A search for the bear was fruitless, and it was not pursued for any further action. Although Jake and Jennifer received gashes and puncture wounds on their legs and arms, their efforts in planning for their own safety paid dividends. To have a brown bear attack you while you're sleeping in your tent is extremely rare, and being prepared may be the only option campers may have for survival. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Did the bear attack Jake and Jennifer because they were close to Hidden Creek and the salmon it contained? Do you think the bear was surprised by the campers after stumbling into the tent and attacked out of defensive motives? Did the tent help or hurt the campers' efforts to avoid being attacked by the bear? Do you plan to add Quick Clot or similar product to your first aid kit? I hope so. I'll enjoy reading and replying to your comments, so please post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.